However, there were common themes that we're developing. And something I just want to point out, that we haven't, or we're not professing to have reinvented sort of, oh, this is what people do, or this is how it is. What I think we've done quite well is just put it into a language that makes it very easy to understand, especially when we are talking with our A&D clients or to end users, just to say, look, these are various things. People can call them different things, but just we've named them and put them into these activities. And I'll run through them briefly. So you've got chat. Chat is, I think, what everybody does. I say that. I presented in Helsinki recently, and they said, you've got us completely wrong. We don't chat. That's one thing we don't do. But in most offices, I think people do chat. And that is the water cooler moment, having a coffee, just talking. There is no purpose to this. It's just, how was your weekend? What were you doing? And it could, often we find sort of spaces naturally form for that. So whether it's by the coffee machine, or could it be on a thoroughfare on your way to a different area. But there's certain places where people tend to stop and chat. Converse is more of a purposeful interaction. You're going with a purpose, with an agenda, you have got something to ask. And normally it is work-related, whereas chat tends not to be. It's just more of a social conversation. Co-create, this is when teams get together and actually work on a project together. You're co-creating something with colleagues. Divide and conquer always sounds like a strange one, but it's basically high-performance teams that are assigned a set project, but then need to work individually to get certain answers, but need to be within close proximity of each other. So if I needed to ask, how are you getting on with that, or what part are you at least you're still accessible, rather than, oh, I wonder where you went. So that's what the idea of divide and conquer is. And then you come together at the end, and you have your conclusion. Huddle. There's a great study that's been done on meeting rooms, and what percentage they are actually reserved or booked, how often they're actually occupied or unoccupied, and also sort of who is using them and when. So why can you never get a meeting room, but when you pass, it's always empty? So yes. So Huddle. Huddle is basically a gathering where you can have a quick meeting, 15, 20 minutes, and what you say is, oh, instead of doing, oh, are you free next Tuesday? Oh, no, you're not free. Oh, but you are, oh, and you might be. The idea is, we're all here now. Can we just grab 10, 15 minutes and just go through what we need to go through? That's what a Huddle is. And it saves the meeting room being booked. Show and tell, pretty much exactly what I'm doing here. Warm up, cool down. Again, a lot of studies have been done on introverts and extroverts and how do people react in meetings and in the workplace in general. So warm up, cool down is basically the pre-meeting and the post-meeting. They talk about the door handle conversation, that often you're leaving a meeting and someone says, you know what I really thought? I thought this. And someone says, that was the best idea, why didn't you say it? Because maybe that person's an introvert and they don't feel comfortable sharing all their ideas or talking above the person who's saying, look at me in the middle of the meeting. They also say that in a meeting, the retention levels are very, very low, and the amnesia effect when you walk through the threshold of the door, you forget everything that was said in the meeting, apart from maybe the bit you said which you overanalyze, and maybe the one bit where someone said or mentioned your name. So this is very much about giving people that space before and afterwards. Also, if you're waiting for someone to come into the room afterwards, instead of seeing them and people hovering and then everyone running their own ways, you can just have that consolidation at the end of it. So I think this is the one that actually resonates with a lot of people. It's like, yes. And again, I think a lot of people do this. It's just affording that space, that they have a set place where they know that they can go. Process and response. So we've now gone on to the 3 alone modes. So there were 7 together modes and 3 alone modes. And one thing I always think is very key to point out with this is there are 10 activities and there are 10 settings, but it's not one setting per activity. I really do believe that you could probably have 3 of the settings and cover all 10 of the activities within that. It's just recognizing what you as a business do more and what spaces you would need more of. So process and respond, one of the alone modes, this is very much the work that is generated by work. So you guys are all here today. I bet you've got emails coming in, you've got phone calls coming in, so tomorrow will be one of those days where you'll be just sitting there and just going through everything. That's process and responding. Creating is actually doing your job. It's allowing you to be on the phone, being proactive, going out there. So one is reactive and this one is proactive. But if you look at the settings and the images, they're very similar. So I don't think you would need to say, oh, well, we need to have that table for process and responding and that table for creating. And finally, we have contemplating. This one, I think a lot of people say, if my boss saw me doing this, they'd probably fire me. It doesn't have to mean that you have to sit on a sofa. It's just recognizing the fact that too many people are leaving the office now to think, because everything is open planned, everything is very noisy. I don't know how many times you've seen people on a phone and they're huddled in a corner trying to make a phone call, or creeping into the thing, or going outside and then you can't hear because of the traffic. So this is just recognizing, give people a space to go, because it's really, really important. And some people get their best ideas and are the most creative and the most productive when they can just have time to think. And again, location is very important. Where are you going to put this space? Because we ourselves have done this at our international headquarters in Chippenham. We had a lovely space like this in a sofa right outside our international leaderships team area. Nobody ever sat there because nobody wanted to be seen to be sort of sitting outside with all senior management looking out, even though they said, but you can use the space. It's like, no one's going to use it. We moved it to the other side of the space. It's all open planned. It's used all the time. People happily sit there and do things. So it's important about proximity as well. So I talked about the settings and the 10 settings that we have. So we've got all these various settings. I'm going to run through them with, I'm going to have to move over here, sorry, just so we don't go through all the images as well. So a haven, so where you can contemplate, converse, or create. Very simple. It's just a space. It could be a desk, it could be a sofa, it could be something that's just slightly out of the way that people could go. It could be bookable or not bookable. Here are just some examples of what it can be. And something else that often comes up is, yeah, you've got all these great ideas and all these great spaces, but we work in a much smaller space. We don't have the luxury of putting all this in. It's just recognizing what do your workforce do and what would they need. It's not that difficult to have a little sort of area or space where you could sort of maybe combine. It could even be in a meeting room, or it could be in a workshop. It could be somewhere where just people feel that they could go freely. So a hive, this is for teams that have a regular place of work. So they need to go there, and it could be your accounts department, it could be finance, IT. They would tend to work in a hive. So you're in, again, close proximity of your teammates. You've got your own set-assigned desk, and you can sort of move around if you want within that. So that could be sort of a hot desking situation, but within a set area or location where people will go from set teams. And that just gives you different ideas of how they could be. Jump space. So this is probably the closest to what people would equate to hot desking. So it's basically an area where you'll probably come and work for maybe 2 or 3 hours during the day and then get up and go. It's not assigned. You can move around. You can chat there. You can process and respond there. I don't see why you couldn't sort of create there if you wanted to as well. But it's somewhere normally in the main sort of thoroughfare. Come in, work, and then go. This gives you some more ideas. Clubhouse. So this actually is one of the settings that I believe is, if you had something along these lines, you'd probably accommodate at least 7 to 8 of the different activities within it. So it's got a variety of settings within it, but you've also got analog and digital, so you can actually work there. The teams can come together, they can separate. You could have impromptu meetings there, you could huddle. I think there's various sort of settings within the Clubhouse in which you could work. This gives you some ideas. Cove. So this is a small area. It's almost like a mini meeting area, normally located between hives. So you could have marketing on one side, and perhaps you've got sales or IT on somewhere else, and if they have to interact, they could come and meet in this place without having to actually get up and book a meeting room and go anywhere far. Again, Cocreate, Converse, Huddle. You could also, I think, do several of the other activities there as well. Location, again, is important with this. We had a Cove between IT and finance, and one is quite quiet when they work, and the others are quite noisy when they work, or loud. It wasn't very successful. Nobody liked it, nobody used it, so we again had to reposition and move. But just gives you some ideas. A meeting space, so I think that's pretty much, oh, we jumped one there.